Live once again to what's happening in London, where you see locals getting their chance to pay their final tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. As we get you those live images of the tributes pouring in for Queen on her final journey, let's take this across to Lavina Tandon. She's joining us with the latest updates from London. Lavina, as we're putting out those latest images, tell us what's next. We understand that the mortal remains of the Queen will now be taken to a final resting place.
Yes, from Wellington Arch, this is the final goodbye as the coffin is going in a car, not in procession, to Windsor. On the way, they will still pass London through various places, but in a car, and the royal family is in the car as well. They will reach Windsor, which is when there will be another procession on the long walk, in which the royal family would not be participating, and then the coffin will be taken into St. George Chapel, which is the chapel where the final rites or the committal service is going to take place. Can I just quickly take you through the small, you mentioned the wreath of flowers. So number one, in the procession you saw 142 sailors in a white robe, with a white robe, pulling the gun carriage that carried for the first time Queen Victoria. Now this carriage was meant for Queen Victoria, but the sailors were not supposed to pull it, but it was because horses might take their own way, which is why the tradition of people, that is Navy sailors, pulling the carriage started, and it still continues. The wreath of flowers, which will remain till the end in the coffin, is the one where the rosemary represents remembrance, and everything else, like the service you saw, bringing UK together, bringing the family together, bringing the world together, and just all symbolized with this, in this wreath of flower. And that was a real personal tribute to her own life, which is that rosemary for remembrance and myrtle. The myrtles represented the happy marriage that she had. And these myrtles in the wreath come from the plant that was planted, from the myrtles that were present in the wedding bouquet that she had in 1947. So the myrtles of those at that time were the ones that were used. Can you imagine that? Such small details on its love and the strength of love. And then the oak coffin that is being carried is that of English oak, which represents love and strength. So these are the values that this entire ceremony and the procession is carrying. And as the coffin enters the St. George chapel, and 4 o'clock the committal service starts. It will start with Sir William Henry Harris, who's the organist for St. George Chapel, and he was also the person who taught Queen piano. His compositions will be played out, and the entire royal family will be present. After the service, there will then be a private service that will be held just for the royal family. And in this there are two very important traditions. Just at the end, when the service is finishing and the coffin has to be laid down in the royal vault, Lord Chamberlain, who's you can call that person someone who looks after the royal household, or the entire for the administrator, let us call it for easier thing, he will break his wand and put it on the coffin. The crown will be removed from the coffin and will be put on the altar. And King Charles III is going to place the Queen's Company camphor color flag. You can call it. It's a Queen's
you know, the
flag
kind of
at the
details
bottom
you're
of
giving
the
us,
cup.
beautiful messaging, a beautiful tribute truly for Queen Elizabeth II, Lavina. I request you to stay on with me. I also want to get in a quick word from Jonathan Gilbert, who's been getting us all the latest updates on the funeral that we just witnessed in London. Jonathan, if you could explain to us the significance of the Queen's final resting place of St. George's Chapel.
Well, there are many, many answers to that question. I mean, Windor Castle has been the official residence of British monarchy going back some 800 years, almost before the dawn of historical time itself. But also, perhaps more aptly, the chapel of which Lavina spoke. There's actually a chapel within a chapel. It's almost like a sort of a box within a box, if you like. So the inner chapel is named the King George Chapel, and that's where the tomb of the royal family is located. So the Queen, when she is finally laid to rest in the very last and most private of these ceremonies, will be placed there in the tomb, literally next to the body of Prince Phillip, the Duke of Edinburgh, her late husband, who of course passed away sadly last year, and then her own parents are there, her mother and her father, King George VI. So really, that's why the body is to be laid to rest there. It's both massively historical and also intensely personal.
Very true. It's been a beautiful, beautiful service so far. We're, of course, going to be tracking all the latest updates. Live images are on your screens right now of the Queen's mortal remains being moved to the St. George's Chapel, and everyone there, Londoners, getting a chance to bid one final goodbye to their beloved Queen. Thanks, Jonathan and Lavina, for all of those updates.